Hey there. Ready to get our hands a little dirty with some financial filings?
Always up for that.
Well, perfect then. Today, we're taking a deep dive into AU Small Finance Bank in India.
Interesting.
Their latest report actually just came out.
Oh, really? Just now?
Yeah, on October 23rd, 2024. And it covers their performance through September 30th, 2024. Should be pretty interesting.
Definitely. And especially since it's their first report after the whole merger with Fincare Small Finance Bank, it'll be fascinating to get a glimpse into their strategy now.
Right, the merger. Yeah, that definitely means we're not exactly comparing apples to apples when we're looking at these year-over-year figures.
Exactly. Although, having said that, their net profit for this period was 107.37816 crore,
Wow.
which is, compared to 78.87312 crore for the same period last year. Even with the merger and everything, it makes you wonder if maybe they're already seeing some synergy benefits.
Now that you mention it, it does. Okay, so the merger is definitely one big piece of the puzzle here. What else jumps out at you from this report? Well, they go really in depth into their loan portfolio.
Their loan portfolio.
Yeah, as per the Reserve Bank of India's guidelines. There's actually a whole section in here on microfinance loans, those smaller loans that can be so impactful, especially for individuals and small businesses.
Right, microfinance. It's a really fascinating space, often seen as both high risk and high reward.
Yeah, and speaking of risk, they've made a contingency provision on those microfinance loans
Okay,
of 17 crore.
a contingency provision, huh? That definitely suggests they're bracing themselves for some bumps in that area.
Right.
I wonder if that's more of a reflection of the broader economic climate or something more specific to their microfinance portfolio.
It's a good question. I don't know. And it actually makes their whole approach to digital banking even more interesting.
How so?
Well, buried in the report, there's this whole section on their digital banking segment.
Which, while it's still relatively small compared to their overall business, it shows that they're definitely, paying attention to the way technology is changing finance.
That's true. It's like they're trying to hedge their bets a little bit, balancing this riskier loan portfolio with this move towards these, lower cost digital operations.
Yeah, definitely. It could be a really smart strategy if they can pull it off.
Right.
And it's not like they're shying away from the complexities of it all either. They even specifically mention using the Basel II standardized approach for calculating their capital adequacy.
Basel II, remind me about that.
Oh, yeah, sure. Um, it's this global framework for risk management in
Okay.
banking. It basically dictates how much capital a bank needs to hold based on, the risks that they're taking.
Yeah.
You kind of think of it like this financial safety net.
Okay, so it's all about ensuring stability and avoiding those huge financial shocks.
Exactly.
Makes
Right.
sense.
And here's where it gets kind of interesting. The report actually highlights that thanks to an exemption from the Reserve Bank of India, they don't even need to make separate capital charges for things like market and operational risks.
Hold on. They get special treatment. What's that all about? Are they considered lower risk?
Not necessarily lower risk, but it does seem like the RBI, views their risk profile a little differently.
Ugh,
Maybe because of their specific focus or their track record.
interesting.
But it definitely offers like a little peek behind the regulatory curtain,
Mm-hmm.
and it could mean that they've got more flexibility in how they manage their capital.
Okay, so maybe they're playing by a slightly different set of rules? I'm starting to see why this report is so fascinating. It's not just about the numbers, but the strategy and the potential implications behind them.
Exactly. That's what makes it a deep dive, right?
Yeah.
Going beyond just, summarizing a bunch of figures, we're trying to piece together what this all means.
It's like we're financial detectives looking for these little clues about where AU Small Finance Bank might be headed.
I like that. I like that analogy. And, one clue that really stands out to me is their loan book composition.
Okay. What do you see there?
Well, they mentioned that their assets totaled, 1,038,082,917.37 lakh.
Okay.
But a huge chunk of that, we're talking 94,083,082,818.04 lakh, is tied up in advances,
Which are,
loans that they've given out.
wow, so their financial health is really riding on those loans performing well.
Yeah,
And we've already talked about that contingency provision on their microfinance loans, which, kind of suggests there's some uncertainty there.
yeah, absolutely. It really highlights this balancing act that they're trying to manage, right?
Yeah.
Aiming for high growth and, financial inclusion through microfinance, but at the same time, trying to navigate all these, inherent risks and the regulatory landscape.
It's a tough spot to be in. And that's actually where their digital push becomes even more interesting, I think.
Yeah, so.
Well, couldn't a move towards digital banking maybe help them to kind of manage that risk a little better,
Essentially, yeah.
lower their costs, maybe reach a wider customer base.
Yeah, for sure. If they can really leverage this technology effectively,
Right.
it could really be a key differentiator for them,
Yeah.
especially in such a competitive market like India.
It's like they're juggling, right? Like all these priorities,
Yeah.
trying to manage risk, adapt to all these new technologies, and carve out their own little niche in such a rapidly evolving market.
It's a lot. And they're doing it all within the constraints of regulation, you know,
Oh, right.
which adds this whole other layer of complexity to everything.
Sure.
Like that whole RBI exemption on capital charges that we were talking about,
Right.
that's not a small detail.
No.
It really suggests that they've either, like convinced regulators that they have this totally unique risk profile, or they're operating in a way that, kind of minimizes those specific risks somehow.
Interesting. Either way, it makes you wonder, could this be like their secret weapon?
Maybe.
This regulatory advantage that allows them to be way more competitive, especially
Yeah.
going up against some of those much larger banks.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Worth considering, for
Yeah.
sure. And it kind of speaks to a larger theme that I feel like we've been circling this whole time, right?
What's that?
Adaptation.
Right.
AU Small Finance Bank, they're clearly not content with just, sticking with the status quo.
Yeah. No, they're not afraid to make moves.
No, they're merging, they're exploring all this new technology, and it seems like they're even, navigating this really complex regulatory landscape to their advantage.
Totally. It's like a good reminder that the world of finance, it's anything but static, right?
Well, yeah,
It's dynamic, it's competitive, and it seems like those who are willing to, adapt and innovate, they're the ones who are most likely to thrive.
precisely. And I think this whole deep dive into their latest report has given us, a front row seat to that.
I agree.
That whole dynamic process, we've gone way beyond just the headlines,
Yeah.
We've gotten past those raw numbers, and we've really gotten some good insight, into their strategy,
Definitely.
their challenges, and of course, their potential.
From mergers to microfinance, digital banking to regulatory exemptions, it's been quite the deep dive.
It really has.
Who knew that a single financial report could be so incredibly revealing?
That's the beauty of these deep dives. You really start to see those, connections,
Yeah.
the nuances, the stories that often get, kind of hidden underneath the surface.
And in this case, it seems like the story of AU Small Finance Bank, it's one of ambition, adaptation, and, a willingness to really push the boundaries of what a smaller bank can really achieve.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And for anyone out there listening who's, interested in the future of finance, who wants to understand how these smaller players can really disrupt and innovate, AU Small Finance Bank is definitely one to keep an eye on.
100%. This story is far from over.
Not even close.
And I'm willing to bet that the next chapter is going to be just as fascinating.
I'm sure it will be.